the Revisionary Podcast with your host, Juan Carlos. The Revisionary Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Revisionary Podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Juan Carlos. So, if you have never listened to the Revisionary Podcast before, the way this works is every week we bring on guests. Usually, a lot of them are comedians, but not always. I like to change it up and keep people on their toes. And they have an opportunity to tell us a story about their life, a nonfiction story at that. And then after they tell their story, I give them an opportunity to retell the same exact story, except this time they get to change any facts or details that they like about their story. Afterwards, we discuss the impact of the changes that they've made to their story. So it's a pretty simple concept and one that we've really come to enjoy. First and foremost, I want to start out by saying thank you very much to all of the listeners. I've been watching the numbers on this podcast and we have been growing steadily. And honestly, it is all because of you. Not to mention, I think last I checked, there were over 20 different countries tuning in, which is phenomenal. That's amazing that these stories are being shared throughout the world. So thank you to each and every single one of you that has supported us. Also, if you don't know, I've announced this a few times and the contest is still ongoing. We have an ongoing contest, so make sure you go ahead and subscribe and like us and leave us those 5-star ratings on Apple Music because it makes a world of a difference. If you really, really want to help, go ahead and tell me what is it that you like about the show. Like, let other people know so that they can tune in as well. Also, there's a cash prize associated with this contest. I believe it's $50 that's being given away to someone who will be chosen at random. So please make sure that you don't miss out on an opportunity to be included in the contest. And make sure you follow us on social media so that you don't miss out on anything that's going on at the Revisionary Podcast. So make sure you're following us on Twitter, which is Revisionary Pod, and make sure you're following us on Instagram, which is Revisionary Podcast. Also, I want to say that last week when we dropped the Nicole Anthony episode, I didn't record this, but I was able to get Nicole on the phone after we were done recording. And we actually surprised my little brother, Jason. We invited him onto the Zoom call. And for me, that was a very special moment because I could see how excited my little brother was he didn't meet her in person, but to meet Nicole Anthony, he was so excited. His reaction was one of utter shock. And it's funny to me because the first words out of his mouth was, "Oh my God, I literally just watched you on TV this summer." So to see how happy he was, for me, it was a very special moment. So thank you again to Nicole Anthony for everything. Thank you for coming on last week. And thank you for being willing to talk to my little brother for a few minutes. You didn't have to do that, but it sure made Jason's day. So I really appreciate that. He's been talking to me nonstop about the moment ever since it happened. I also wanted to say that a lot of you have been listening to this podcast, and I mentioned before, if you're having any troubles listening to the podcast, maybe you're having issues with low data or something like that, make sure you tune into bullhorn.fm. Bullhorn just makes the podcast way more accessible, so please go ahead and check them out if you haven't already. They have a great platform, and they offer so many different features and so many different ways to engage with the podcast, so please go ahead and make sure you do that. I'm really excited to be working with them. They have been an absolute wonder. So without further ado, let me talk a little bit about our guests. I don't want to get sidetracked too much. So this week, we actually have Kenan Floyd. I'm excited to go ahead and speak to him. He is an interesting guy. He's a comedian from the Los Angeles area. I actually don't know him very well because we met online, but I'm really excited to talk to him because I know he has an interesting story. I know he mentioned to me in the past that, and by the past, I mean when we were chatting online, he mentioned that he was a former Jehovah's Witness, so I hope that he touches upon that a little bit in the story. I don't know what he's going to talk about, but it should be a good time. I know for a fact that he's a writer, and I think he produces shows down in Los Angeles, so make sure you go ahead and check out his shows if you're in the Los Angeles areas. Of course, I mean post-pandemic, but you know what? I don't want to delay this too much, so without further ado, let's go ahead and see if we can get Kenan on the line. Hey, Kenan, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on your incredible podcast.
No, I really appreciate your time, and we really appreciate having you here. So what have you been up to?
Well, I'm living in Los Angeles, and it's burning right now. So I'm trying to stay unburnt and un-COVID.
So it's funny because I've been out in Seattle, and all that smoke that came up from LA was choking me up here. So I was like, could you guys handle that? We need that taken care of now.
Well, what's weird about it is we have fires around this time of year every year, And this time it was a doozy because I guess this one was started by a gender reveal party.
I heard.
And I think that's messed up because I don't even know what the gender of the baby is. You at least owe us. You at least owe us some cake or something. I mean, come on. I mean, could you imagine being the child of a parent that burnt down the West Coast?
No, I'd be really embarrassed.
Yeah, it's like I would change my last name and all that stuff because it's like our parents have done something embarrassing to us, but they've never destroyed people's lives.
It's funny because I'm like pretty much like one of those people. I love the sun. I love, fresh air. I love when it's beautiful out. I was praying for it to rain because I couldn't breathe. Like my eyes were getting watery. I was stuck inside for like 10 days. I was planning on finally getting my life right and working out. And then these fires happened. I was like, so I'm still fat. And, that's your fault, whoever started this.
Yeah, I mean, look, fires are trying to kill us. Earthquakes are trying to kill us. COVID's trying to kill us. The police are trying to kill us. It's not it's not a good time right now. But on a positive note, if anyone is in the Los Angeles area, I host a weekly comedy show in Pan Pacific Park off of Beverly Boulevard, 7600 Beverly Boulevard, every Saturday at 4 and 7 p.m. So if you want to get outside, if you want to get some laughs, we have great comedians from all over the city. So come by and join us at Pan Pacific Park at 7600 Beverly Boulevard in Los Angeles, California.
So if I roll through, you're not going to pretend like you don't know me, right?
No, yeah, I'll act stank for a couple minutes, and then we'll go off in the corner where no one can see us, and I'll give you a high five or something.
Oh, all right, cool. You know how it is out here, you LA people. Y'all like, how useful to me are you right now? Are you in the industry? Nah, okay, we're good.
Are you in the industry? What can you do for me?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. Shout out to all the LA comics. Nothing but love over here.
Well, that's one for me. That's one of us.
So, what else have you been up to? Have you been working on a podcast of your own?
Yes. So I recently, I've done a few episodes, but I've recently gotten back into doing a podcast with a comedian from Connecticut named Maurice Green called The Light-Skinned Perspective. If you guys want to check it out, you can actually subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Light-Skinned Perspective Podcast. We got about 15 episodes up now, and we're going to continue to do episodes and hopefully build a large fan base. We talk about politics, we talk about dating, we talk about relationships, we talk about movies, we talk about a whole bunch of different things. So it's a fun time, two comedians that are bald and light-skinned talking about life. So come check us out at the Light-Skinned Podcast.
Why did the bald part matter? I'm just curious.
For some reason, we're both bald.
Does that make you angry? I feel like bald people are angry.
No, I mean, I'm not angry. I mean, I've definitely leaned into my baldness.
I see.
It did sneak up on me because I kind of started losing my hair young. So what I used to do is I used to get my hair cut real nice, like real straight and stuff.
Yeah.
At a Dominican barber. And but one day my friend came up to me because my hair grew out a little bit. He's like, yo, bro, I have to tell you something. I don't know how to tell you, but you're losing it in the back. And it's like I had like that hole in the back.
Oh, the crown?
I started getting like a George Jefferson at 27. So that's when I just started just shaving it all off. And I get hair on my face. So, I mean, that's...
It seems like a small penance to pay.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? This is a true story. I actually had a similar problem. So I've always traditionally had longer hair or whatever. And I remember, I was like, this was a few years ago. My mother tells me, she goes, I think you're going bald. And I was like, no, it can't be. So for like 3 weeks, I would like stare myself at work, looking for bald spots, swearing that I was going bald. So I think it was like for my 28th birthday, I shaved my head completely, worried that I might go bald. And then turned out my hair was fine. It's just, I have curly hair. That's all that was. Also, I realized as I'm telling this story that I'm just chock full of privilege. Here I am talking about my petty problems and you are actually without hair.
Yes, I hate you right now. It's all good.
Fair enough. Well, why don't we just go ahead and jump right into it? Kenan, the stage is yours. Why don't you go ahead and tell us your story?
Well, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. And when I say raised, every sense of the word, from before the womb until, 30 years old. When you're born into a religion like the Jehovah's Witnesses, there's a lot of expectations that are expected of you, especially in my case, because I had very popular Jehovah's Witness parents. Like, for example, my father was an elder in the congregation. My mother was a pioneer, which is like a full-time evangelizer. And, of course, the children are expected to follow suit. That's kind of the pressure that they put on you in the church, because it's all about reputation. It's all about doing what's right, looking good, and making sure that people respect you for the things that you do for the church. The issue that I had, though, was that I was fine living in a Jehovah's Witness household, but I was interested in other things. Like, for example, I started doing comedy at 15.
Right.
Are
you not allowed to as a Jehovah's Witness?
Well, to pursue a career in the entertainment world is very tricky because they feel that anything that's not associated with the church is associated with Satan the devil.
Wow.
So there's the difference. There's the Jehovah's Witnesses, and then there's what you call the world. And the world is everything that's outside of the church. So if you say, okay, I want to have a lucrative career, that means you have to go into the world and spend time in that world to build your career. Right?
Right.
So anytime I'm like, oh, I wanted to work in entertainment, I didn't just want to do comedy. I also wanted to make movies. I wanted to write, direct, and produce my own movies. And that's a lot of time that you have to spend with other people that are not Jehovah's Witnesses. You have to work with people that aren't Jehovah's Witnesses all the time. You have to dedicate most of your life to the craft. You have to go to school, so you have to spend a few years learning about it. You have to spend a lot of time on set, post-production, etc., being involved in that lifestyle, going to award ceremonies, going to networking dinners. So it's very hard for a Jehovah's Witness to split that time between pursuing a full-fledged career in entertainment and also hand out Watchtower subscriptions.
Got it.
So it came down to, what can I do where I can kind of finagle it, where I can do both. I can be satisfied, I can please my parents, I can please my friends, but I can also pursue my passion. Because it got to a point where I could not live without doing my passion, right?
Right.
So I ended up going to school, and while I was in school, I decided to produce my own little independent film. So I got some friends from my class, and I did it under the pretense that I was doing a school assignment, right? So we started shooting in August, and we finished shooting, I think, in March or so. So it was how many months is that? August, September, October, November.
Don't ask me to do math.
January, February, March. So I had an 8-month school assignment where I was out shooting this movie during the week and on the weekends with friends of mine from school, right? So I'm spending all this time shooting this movie. I'm starting to get support from my parents a little bit because, it's a school assignment, obviously. So I'm writing the script, I'm shooting, I'm figuring out how to edit on my own, I'm figuring out how to do visual effects, like I'm meeting people that do films and stuff. So the movie finished, and we get a 2,000-seat movie theater in town to show it for free.
What? That's amazing.
So on June 6th, 2004, we show the movie, and a bunch of people from my church come to the screening because they all know that I'm working on this movie, and they're all excited, and they're talking to me about it. They're talking to me about what plot points I could put in it, what special effects I could put in it. So everyone was excited that I was making this movie, and they want to come out and support. So the movie starts, and then the movie ends, and all of my church friends leave and don't say anything to me.
Like, just absolute silence. They just walk up and walk. Okay.
Just leave, right?
Wow.
So I'm like, what? Like, my school friends liked it, kind of. I mean, the movie was horrible, but my school friends kind of liked it. And I'm like, well, what happened? What is it? So my dad comes to me, and he's almost like stone cold face. And he's like, he didn't really say anything to me, but we went to dinner afterwards, and basically people in the church, the elders in the church, told my father that the movie was utterly inappropriate, it was satanic. If it would have been like a real movie, it would have been like rated R. It was offensive.
Why?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Let's back up for a second here. What was the movie about? What was the plot?
So the plot was basically about, there was this special crystal. I'm trying to remember now. There was a special crystal that endowed people with infinite power. Okay. So we had a bad guy who was basically like made of shadows, and then we had the good guys racing against each other to find this crystal before one of them gets their hands on it. So like the bad guy has like an army of shadows, and then we have like all the good guys. There's like a princess that was in it, and then there was like farmers and peasants that basically became the heroes of the story. So, not gonna lie, they might have been onto something. That sounds pretty satanic. You said shadows. Yeah. So I mean, it was. I mean, I'm not gonna say it wasn't, but it was. So what happens is the army of shadows basically takes over the palace and kidnaps the princess. Right? Very like Star Wars-y, very like Lord of the Rings. Hero saves the princess type deal. So our heroes go to the palace and they're fighting all these soldiers and stuff. They have swords, so they're like chopping people in the gut and like all. No one gets their heads chopped off, but it's a lot of people getting killed. So yeah, my movie was violent. My movie was satanic, and I mean the music was good at least. Did you feel shame? I mean, they made me feel shamed. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, I got the movie done, and I showed up the movie. That's cool. Because it was supposed to be 2 screenings. So there was going to be 1 screening on Saturday, and then there was going to be another screening on Sunday. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, we're going to do another screening. And a lot of people were there, too. And it was like, oh, there's going to be, like, another screening tomorrow. So that's cool. Or whatever, right? And so I felt good for, like, a second. But I didn't think about it because I was in the ecstasy of finally getting a movie done and showing it. So afterwards, my dad was like, all right, you have to like destroy all the copies of the movie and we can't, all this stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, what happened? You know what I mean? So after that, what they do is in the church, I actually was I was what you call reproved. Like I couldn't do church privileges and stuff. Like what? Like in the Jehovah's Witness church, there's certain privileges that you have, like passing the microphone for people, or praying for the congregation, stuff like that. Stuff at this point, you're like, oh, well, that was dumb. Like, who cares, about that stuff? Right. But I wasn't allowed to do. I was on punishment, I guess you could call it, right? Mm-hmm. So the elders called me into the back room and they explained to me, they're like, we felt abused because we came to see your movie and it was utterly and indespicably inappropriate for us to watch. So I was like, so I tried to act like I was disappointed in myself. I was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I bowed my head. I was like, oh, I'm so ashamed that I put you guys through that. I'm so sorry. Right. And then that was it. I was going to go to film school and shit. I couldn't go to film school. I was going to go, I wanted to pursue a career in movies, and it wasn't going to happen in those circumstances. So it really put a damper on you, the whole experience? Yeah, it kind of made me feel oh, I could actually do wrong things. I could get in trouble for pursuing my dreams, basically. So, I mean, go ahead. No, but here's where I'm curious. But you also lied about this for 8 months. Was that not an issue for them, or did they never find out? Well, technically, I wasn't lying because it was a school assignment. It was a school assignment, but at the same time, I said, this is what I want to do for a career. So I'm going to take advantage of the school assignment, and I'm going to do this. Okay. So that makes a lot more sense. So basically, you don't have a choice but to support me because I'm doing it for a grade. I'm trying to graduate. You know what I mean? So wait, did you build a volcano? What was the feedback that you got from your friends or from the non-church people who came to watch your movie? Well, the movie was horrible, but they were still supportive. You know what I mean? They were like, well, the music was good. Good job for getting it on the big screen, stuff like that. So, I mean, the movie was horrible, but no one made me feel bad about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But...
Okay. So let me ask you this. So now, you feel bad. You had wanted to go to film school. What happened next? Did you not go to film school because of this incident?
Yes, I did not go to film school. I ended up going to school for, at the behest of my father. I ended up going to college for computer science and IT. And, I mean, it was fine. I mean, it was 4 years. I learned about IT. I learned, computer stuff. I got certifications with Microsoft and like C++ certifications for all the nerds out there. So so basically I did that, and I really didn't pursue a career in computers because I said, okay, well, I guess to please everyone, I can do something for the church or whatever, right? So what I decided to do was I decided to be a missionary in the Dominican Republic. So I said, okay, so first I'm going to go to like a Spanish congregation in the United States. And I was there for 2 years. And then I said, okay, well, maybe I can learn some more Spanish if I actually lived in the country where they spoke Spanish. Spanish was the mother tongue. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to go to the Dominican Republic. So I went to the Dominican Republic, and I was there for 10 years. But I mean, the thing that kind of like threw me off was that I didn't realize that Dominican women were so hot.
That's my mom you're talking about, so let's dial this back.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're Dominican? What part of Dominican Republic is your family from?
San Cristobal.
San Cristobal? Okay, I lived in Santiago and I lived in Puerto Plata.
Oh, yeah, that's way north.
Yeah, so I've been to San Cristobal a couple times. But yeah, so it's like I was there for 10 years, and it was fine. It was cool. The first time I had ever been away from my parents. But like I said, Dominican women are very attractive. So basically, I got involved with I got a girlfriend or two.
So you became of the world, which is exactly what your parents were trying to avoid.
Which I became of the world, and I think they were suspicious for some time that I was fooling around. So eventually, someone got a hold of my cell phone, and they went through, and I without a password on it. So I was dumb for that. And they I guess went through my text messages and stuff, and saw that I was like texting girls or whatever. And basically, they caught me, and they said, "Okay, well, again, you're doing something that's against the rules and against God, so we're going to have to excommunicate you or just fellowship you from the church." So, after I got this fellowship, I ended up moving back to the States, and I was able to I lived in New York for a while where I went back to doing comedy. I was in Philly for a little bit, and then I ended up moving out to Los Angeles because I was doing a writing gig for a TV pilot. But my great bachelor's degree in computers finally came into play because I finally got a job in the film industry as an IT guy for a visual effects company. So full circle.
Wait, so let me ask you this. What happens when you're excommunicated from the church? Are you still able to have a relationship with your parents and other people still in the church?
Well, if you're excommunicated, you're not supposed to talk to anyone that's still associated with the church.
Okay, even your parents?
Even family, yes.
Wow, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and go back through this. So go ahead and retell your story, but change the facts that you would have changed. What would you have done differently?
Well, I was born into and raised a Jehovah's Witness. And I wish I would have been more stern in my decisions. More stern in my decision what I really wanted to do. Maybe I could have seen a way that I could have made it work. Maybe I could have worked in the parameters where I could have had both. You know what I mean? Maybe I could have made a movie about creeks or people that like to walk in the woods. Or maybe I could have made a movie about high school students that were trying to stop their principal who happens to be an alien or something. Maybe it could have been something a little bit more lighthearted. You know what I mean? Maybe I should have sat there and just thought about a better story that everyone could have enjoyed. So I could have been a successful filmmaker and also still had friends.
So what inspired you to make the film on that matter you did choose?
Well, I just think at the time, like Lord of the Rings was popular at the time, Harry Potter was popular at the time,
I see.
and Star Wars was a thing. So I basically was just like, oh, I would love to make like at least a parody or something of this, because let's face it, these movies are ridiculous. Like these fantasy films and all these movies are totally ridiculous.
Oh,
So it's like
such a Slytherin.
I don't know what that means, but anyway. I said, what if I just kind of did like a little parody or kind of make my own thing? Because one thing we don't see in these movies, we don't be seeing no black people running around these movies.
That's true.
So even back then, I was like, what if I did like a Black Lord of the Rings or whatever, right? So, I mean, that's really the tip that I was on. I was like, yo, it would be cool if this happened or if this happened or if this...
Okay, so let's just say that you had done something a little more... I don't want to say innocent because that's not what the implication I'm trying to make. But let's say a different subject matter. It's lighter. Let's say it's accepted by the church. So would they have immediately? You talked about going off to film school and having the best of both worlds, but they would have supported you.
Well, then that's another thing. No, they would not have. That's the deal. Because again, remember, we're talking about you have to stay separate from the world. So even if I did make a little movie or made a cartoon, now I could have used my skills and made Jehovah's Witness movies, because the organization itself, they produce videos. They produce like Christian videos. So I could have technically used my skills and said, hey, I have skills in filmmaking. I could have made Jehovah's Witness movies.
So that sounds like a win-win, because you said that your friends didn't like your movie anyway. So you could have appealed to one like demographic.
I mean, it's one of those things too where it's like, when it comes to like what I would have done differently, it's almost like, was it worth doing? Well, sure. I think it was, because I learned a lot of things from the experience. I learned like who I was as a person. And I mean, I also got a chance to actually like work in Hollywood soon after I did my movie. But, I chose to go to the Dominican Republic. Now, when it comes on that aspect, I think I should have stuck with the Hollywood gig, because at the end of the day, that's where I was going to end up anyway.
So did you go to the Dominican Republic out of guilt?
Not really, but it was kind of what do you call it? A desperate call for, hey, I'm still one of the good ones.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I wasn't guilty, but I was just like, hey, if I do this, then at least I'll look. At least I'll look like I'm taking this seriously.
What's that phrase though? Is it a wolf in sheep's clothing?
Well, not even that. No, it's not even that. Like, I wasn't evil. And what's funny about it is, when I went to the Dominican Republic, I actually had a friend in Jalabacoa. I don't know if you know what Jalabacoa is.
Yeah.
But he was also interested in making movies as well. So when I got down there, me and him would work on projects. You know what I mean? So I mean, it was like, oh, here's someone that's doing the best of both worlds. I mean, he's working on projects, he's working on his own movies. I mean, obviously they're not like movies that are going to theaters. It's just stuff he's doing like as a hobby.
Right.
But, I mean, I was still able to get my rocks off where I was like, oh, hey, I'm still kind of like doing the thing. I'm doing the thing that I want to do and I'm enjoying it. But the issue is, when I started doing it, I still wanted more.
So, okay, so now walk me through this. So you're in film school, right? You went through it. You're in film school. You get your internship in Hollywood. I guess the disconnect for me here is this. You're saying that you still wouldn't have had the support of the church. So essentially, you would have still been in the same exact situation you're in now, except you'd be furthering your film career. Is that what it is?
Except I would be furthering my film career. So at this point, I almost won an Oscar.
Oh my God, yeah.
I almost won an Oscar for great screenplay. I've won an Emmy for one of my television shows. I've met Kevin Hart. I've been on a couple of days with Sanaa Lathan and Rihanna already.
Just a couple. But let me ask you this then, because there are famous Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, for example, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Serena Williams a Jehovah's Witness?
The thing about that is that that's kind of the issue that I have with this whole situation. a lot of times, depending on how much money you have and influence you have, you don't necessarily you are taken easy on, because at the end of the day, a lot of religion is a business. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not judging anyone based on their beliefs, but a lot of religions are businesses. They need money to keep the lights on. You know what I mean?
Right.
So basically, anyone that can help them can, they'll go easy on them. For example, Serena and Venus Williams, they were never baptized. So they claim to be Jehovah's Witnesses, which is good PR, but their lifestyle doesn't necessarily go in tune with what a normal person like myself would be able to accomplish. Like, for example, Serena Williams was clearly dating Common.
Right.
You know what I mean? So do you think they were having a celibate relationship?
I mean, I'd like to think so.
Maybe not. But Common is definitely not a Jehovah's Witness. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I remember, like, a friend of mine, he actually knew the Williams sisters. And he would tell me, he would say, and I met him in the DR, he actually said, hey, we used to go to the Williams sisters' homes for parties. Like, we would go to their house for parties. And I looked at him in his face, and I was like, I'm pretty sure Serena is dating Common.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like, you can do whatever you want. I'm not judging you, but I'm just saying it just seems like it's against the rules.
Right.
I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm not judging you, but...
So, hold on. I think this is the point where my lawyers have advised me that I need to tell you that these are your views and only your views, and anything you say about Serena are exclusively your views and not having anything to do with this podcast. So you can continue.
I love Serena Williams, by the way. Serena Williams is amazing.
Oh, yeah. Now you want to recant.
No. I think she's amazing, but I'm just talking about a relationship too.
No, I got you. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I love Serena. By the way, if you're listening, Serena, you're amazing.
He was about to tell you that he's better than the guy from Reddit, but then he thought about that. Anyway.
I certainly am, but, it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Do you feel like you missed out on anything ever since you've been excommunicated?
To be honest, no.
No. So what has this cost you, if anything?
Well, I have an estranged relationship with my family, but that's not really any fault of their own. Like, I just want to be clear. Like, I very much still love my family. My family very much still loves me. The religion itself puts a lot of pressure on its members. So what happens is, to be frank, they threaten their members with their own excommunication or loss of privileges and all that stuff. So it kind of puts people in a rock and a hard place when it comes to, like, family relations, when people decide to actually leave the church. I wish it was different, but at the same time, it's like I'm happy with being able to actually do what I've set out to do. Like, I'm actually becoming pretty successful in this field, in this industry at the moment. So, you give and take. Okay.
So, first and foremost, again, I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. Before I let you go, we like to wrap up every episode by asking one last question.
Sure.
Could you tell us, quick little story of, a moment from your childhood that brings a smile to your face, or just, any happy memory that you hold near and dear?
Yes. When my dad and I worked on a science project for a science fair, and when I was a big roller coaster fanatic, so my dad and I built a roller coaster out of toothpicks. And this roller coaster was, oh my goodness, it had to have been like 15 feet tall. And all it was, we got a model railroad track, and we bent it so we could make a loop. So we had the hill, and then we had the loop that we built, and then it would just go up, and then it would come back down. And we made little cars with, like, model railroad wheels, and we put, like, a car on top of it. I ended up winning second place at the science fair.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Did the car actually move?
Yeah, the car would go down the hill, and it would make the loop.
Wow.
It legit worked.
What is that, centrifugal force?
Yeah, centrifugal force. And I put together a little presentation board.
Yeah.
So I had the roller coaster in front, and then in the back I had, like, a 3-piece presentation board. And my presentation was called thrill rides, the science of fun, or something, something like that.
For those of you guys who are listening, I know exactly 7 science words. That just happens to be one of them. So I'm not that smart, is what I'm trying to say.
Force and physics.
So that's pretty cool. Thank you for coming on again. Do you have any last word for our revisionaries before we let you go?
Pursue your dreams. Be happy, and be happy with those that are around you.
And where can we follow you?
You guys can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Kenan J. Floyd. That's Kenan J to the Floyd as in pink. That's Kenan J. Floyd on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check out my podcast, The Light Skin Perspective, on YouTube. Go and look up Light Skin Perspective Podcast and subscribe.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Take care, Kenan.
You too.
The Revisionary Podcast.
So that was an interesting perspective. Who would have thought that a movie would cause so much drama? And it seems to me like some of the issues that he's experiencing have affected him to this day. But I think it's pretty cool. And I also thought it was interesting to connect with somebody from a different background, because I've heard a lot about Jehovah's Witness and the religion, but I personally don't know anything about it outside of direct conversations that I've had with people who grew up in that faith. So I think it's interesting to have a different perspective. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And as always, thank you for listening.
This is the Revisionary